Are you experiencing a spiritual emergency, or are you experiencing psychosis? Many traditional therapists, psychiatrists, and medical doctors do not have an understanding of the difference between a spiritual emergency and what they understand traditional psychosis to be. This often can lead individuals who are having a spiritual emergency to be misdiagnosed, and the diagnosis of psychosis can be extremely traumatizing and pathologizing to individuals who actually need guidance on how to understand their experiences and how to navigate them. Oftentimes, medical providers just diagnose and prescribe intense medications which actually numb and stop the experiences from happening, which just leads to additional trauma and additional disorientation and other symptoms. In this video, I discuss my own experience of having a spiritual emergency, which led to my own misdiagnosis of schizophrenia. I briefly share how this moment or how the spiritual crisis began in my video, My Spiritual Awakening Was Misdiagnosed as Schizophrenia. And in a follow-up video, I discuss the moment I realized that it wasn't schizophrenia, that it was a spiritual emergency. In this video, I will discuss how to understand the difference between a spiritual emergency and psychosis, as well as share how I turned my own mental health struggles into deep wisdom that led to me healing and integrating the aspects of my unconscious that were revealing themselves as this spiritual emergency, and how this led to my own connection to my innate compassionate nature, which is truly what we all are, is compassion and peace. So in my previous video, I discussed that after this amazing experience I had in 2008 of awakening to something that is hard for the human brain to comprehend, I began having experiences that were disorienting and confusing. I began having a deep fear of being raped and sexually violated. I oftentimes felt like I wasn't in control of my body, that I was having intense body sensations that felt like I was being sexually violated. I was having these thoughts that people in the external world were demons and that they were going to attack me and they were going to sexually abuse me. I started having these experiences that were really profound. For example, I was getting a massage one day and I was laying on the massage table, and all of a sudden my body fell into the position of Jesus on the cross, and I felt pain in my hands and my feet and my side, and I was afraid that I was dying, and I was afraid of being murdered for my belief systems. And then I had visions of Jesus doing his ministry, and I had clarity that all of us are connected to something beyond ourselves and have the ability to be who Jesus was and to teach what Jesus taught. But at the time, I didn't quite understand that experience, and it was just really disorienting. And I was going to a psychic school at the time, and they were teaching us about past lives. So I thought, oh, is this my past life? And I thought, maybe I was Jesus in a past life. But then I had experiences of Mary Magdalene's life and Kuan Yin and Buddha. And I was like, could I have possibly have been all of these people in a past life? And I just did not understand what was happening. And I was having a hard time grounding. And all of these experiences were merging together, the fear and the mystical experiences. And I just was afraid. I was afraid of everything that I was experiencing. So I told my family, and my family said, you're psychotic and you need to go to the hospital. And so I took myself, and my family took me to the hospital, and I was afraid to share what I was experiencing. So I kind of just sat there in a catatonic state, and the doctors were asking me questions, and I was petrified, and I was disoriented. And so they put me in observation. They did scans of my brain. They explained that they felt that I was psychotic and that I should go to treatment. And they put me in a mental hospital where I was with other individuals that were experiencing psychosis. And they put me on intense medication. This kind of led to a period of maybe 8 years where I really was petrified of these experiences and came to understand that I was psychotic, or at least I thought I was psychotic. So let me explain what psychosis is. Psychosis is when you have internal experiences that feel disorienting and there's no external stimuli that justifies the experience. So you might be experiencing fear of persecution, and that is leading to paranoid thoughts that you're going to be harmed. And from psychosis perspective, these are considered delusions. And these are considered hallucinations. So my doctors felt that these memories that I was having of past lives were hallucinations. They weren't mystical experiences. They were literally my brain hallucinating. And these fears of having been raped were delusions that my brain was creating, and they were not based on fact because my family was telling me I did not have a history of being raped. So psychosis and spiritual emergency can look quite similar. And in fact, I have a theory, which is that when individuals are experiencing psychosis, it is somehow an aspect of themselves tapping into the collective field that we all reside in, and their brain is trying to make sense of data. And I think that is what happened to me. I was tapping into my own unconscious, which I have come to understand that I actually have a trauma history. I was sexually abused as a child. It's your brain trying to make sense of these experiences, but because you're not in a grounded state, and because you're connected to neural pathways from childhood and you're disoriented by the experiences and don't have a framework from them, it creates what looks like psychosis, or what has been diagnosed as psychosis, which is sort of separation from being grounded in reality. So that is kind of a brief understanding of like the difference between a spiritual emergency and psychosis is lack of understanding of the experiences. And spiritual emergency is also when your brain has had an experience that changes your current belief systems, right? So my previous belief system was that there wasn't a spiritual world, that God is separate from us. And the experiences I was having was that God isn't separate from us. God is a part of us, and that we are all a unified field, and that spiritual beings have walked the earth. And so I didn't know how to make sense of these experiences because my current belief system said that they weren't in alignment. So a spiritual emergency is when something happens that shifts and challenges your belief systems. So how does this relate, or why am I sharing this story in a video? I wrote a book called The Divine Within, Healing Ourselves to Heal the World, which is going to be published by Atmosphere Press, hopefully later this year. I'm thinking around December. In this book, I explore spirituality and I explore the concept of the collective divine, which is what I call the unified field that we all exist in. Many people have a way of describing this. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious. It is where the myths and stories of humanity and religion and spirituality come from. My book explores this in more depth, as well as my personal story and how I learned to heal and integrate these experiences, which ultimately led me to understand spiritual truths on a deeper level and helped me to connect to my own compassionate heart and integrate and heal these really complex feelings that I have had. In my next video, I will explore a mystical experience I had in 2012, where I first began to realize that the experiences that I was having that were my spiritual emergency, which I thought was psychosis, was actually not psychosis. It was the first moment in the period between 2008 and 2012 where I thought, Maybe there's meaning in these experiences. So if you're curious about that, I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can get an alert when that video goes live. I hope you'll also consider going to my website, blossomingheartwellness.com, and sign up for my newsletter so you can receive information about blogs that I post about healing and spirituality, as well as updates about my upcoming book. I'm sending you all deep love and appreciation. And for those of you who might be experiencing a spiritual emergency or who might have a diagnosis of psychosis, I want you to know that there is hope, that there are ways to overcome these experiences and to actually learn from them. I do explore how to do that in my upcoming book, The Divine Within, Healing Ourselves to Heal the World. And I hope to explore that in more depth in my next book, which is going to be called The Myth of Schizophrenia. Love you all.